Your boy making cold cuts, and I ain't talking about the sandwiches. If episode one was therapy no feature, we're gonna call this the breakdown. I think with this episode, I want to do more of a reflection. Change requires a lot. To create a lasting change, you have to create a lasting shift. And so it's in that vein that I talk about creating a shift, especially in regards to the dichotomy between that first video and this last video. It says we overestimate what we can do in a year, but we underestimate what we can do in five. And there's a beauty in peace that teaches you patience, the power of the pause. I think we owe it to ourselves to be more aware of those interests, where they align, where we think they don't. So many of us inherently have work ethic. We want to work hard. We want to make things work, but it makes waiting hard. Everybody's different. We don't have the same strengths. We don't all have the same weaknesses. And it's in pulling those things together that we get better outcomes across the board is important to me. And I'm grateful for having achieved a level of awareness that allows for me to be grateful in that way. I want to be able to look back and say, this is why. What a road it's been. Back. It's December, episode 12. Let's get deep. If episode one was therapy no feature, we're going to call this the breakdown, the wrap up, the end of the year, if you will. There's so much I could say and so many directions I could take this in. I thought about doing a similar thing in a kind of sandwich fashion of the first episode, where I was going to do another therapy like session and just review and show the contrast and the stark difference of um just me, what I've been able to become, grow into, and let it be apparent. But I think anybody who's been watching the episodes, that's already clear. It's very obvious. Um, you can see it just gets better and better each episode. Obviously, it's still low budget, it's new, a lot of kinks to work out, but humble beginnings, as they say. I think with this episode, I want to do more of a reflection on the season and kind of dive into my own psychology and do a debriefing on how I feel it went. And if this does end up catching traction later and becoming more of a thing, and I come back and do more, I think it will be interesting to see, one, for myself, what that process looks like more objectively, and to see what the viewers have to say. For me, one of the big reasons I wanted to start this podcast that I could consciously attach myself to and use as motivation to continue through the hardships was just understanding the importance of habitual activity. And what I mean by that is, again, like, change requires a lot action, to say the least, but a lot of internal work. To create a lasting change, you have to create a lasting shift. Often that starts in the mind, in your mindset, in your perspectives. And we think it starts in the mind, but it's much deeper than that, in regards to, you have to, like, your belief. Your beliefs have to change in a certain regard. And I don't mean your system of beliefs, I mean your internal mechanisms, your daily beliefs, the things your subconscious stirrings. And I'm like, but again, I don't want to get too deep too fast. And that's a danger since it's just me. There's no, there's nobody else to kind of rein me in and make me take that back seat. But I do think it's important that even though it's just me, that people end up watching this leave with something. They leave with an understanding of the thought processes behind this endeavor, the things that go through my mind when I seek to do something like this. And so it's in that vein that I talk about creating a shift, especially in regards to the dichotomy between that first video and this last video. So much has happened in the time between them and now, and yet it feels like one season in the show called My Life. I was very much the same person, but I was so different. I was a lot younger for one. And 5 years doesn't seem like a long time. Well, I guess it's more seven in reality. I'm like, but I think I was 25 when I recorded that video because my dad had just died. I'm 30 now, about to be 31 next month. And there's this quote that I love. One of my teachers in the past shared with me. It says, "We overestimate what we can do in a year, but we underestimate what we can do in five." And that's always stuck with me. And I think this is a brilliant example of that because I've changed so much, not fundamentally, but very close to that level. I've shifted a lot of mindsets, a lot of patterns of thinking. I've become more aware and in doing so, more able to articulate those changes, track them, pay attention to them, and therefore use them to my advantage. And so it's my hope that in delving deep into these ideas and lending my ability to articulate, that it can trigger or catalyze um, those like me who are not like me. If that makes any sense. Everybody is unique. Everybody's different. We don't have the same strengths. We don't all have the same weaknesses. And it's in pulling those things together that we get better outcomes across the board. And so for those who are not, as articulate or well versed or studied, it doesn't mean they're not like me. They're not feeling these same things. They're not thinking about these same things. They're not having these same, um, struggles, worries, anxieties, fears, dreams, beliefs, wishes. The list goes on and on. And I hope that those people stumble onto this podcast because I feel like those are the people who will most resonate and glean the most from this consistently. And so it's in allowing myself to be vulnerable in these ways, give, share, think out loud in such a public way and format that people can be inspired to do the same, if nothing else. You know, I truly believe the answers are in all of us. And it's less about asking the right questions and more about trusting that the answers will rise as the questions present themselves. I think humans have a tendency to rush and trip over ourselves. And there's a beauty in peace that teaches you patience. I think when my dad died, it forced me to stop and think. And although I didn't need to reevaluate the cost of the grind, if you will, it was more I needed to appreciate my willingness to pay it. which can sound, that can sound a bit ethereal because I'm like, it can get very convoluted, but again, the way my dad died at the time that he died, it forced me to stop and think about a lot of things in a lot of ways, in a lot of facets. And I didn't realize how much that taught me inadvertently, the path that set me on, the power of the pause. If we just take a second to think how those answers will unfold, the directions our train of thought will take us, all the things we can uncover about ourselves, others, the world at large. I think it's very interesting when I look back on decisions that I've made and think about why I made them, how I made them, when I made them, my emotional state in doing so. Life is such an interesting process, good and bad. I think we owe it to ourselves to be more aware of those interests, where they align, where we think they don't, and the emotional impact that has, and how it's different from the psychological impact and the physical impact, and so on and so forth. And so I really say all of that to say, at the core of this podcast, that is my goal, is to simply share in hopes that it triggers, even if it's not what I'm hoping for, I think still useful, still valuable. Perhaps this has been I'm like, if nothing else, it has been a valuable pursuit, even if I don't continue to do this moving forward. But I do think from this point on, it will depend on how this is received. Even though I hesitate to say that because I've never been a person who really cares, but that's another one of the lessons. I was like, it's not always about caring. Sometimes it's a feeling and learning to trust that feeling and see where it leads, see what you can uncover. Tough. It's a tough process, but well worth it. I found in my experience every time it's always worth it. Never. I think the other thing that I've learned from this is my appreciation for silence, not having to talk so much, so frequently, which is ironic when you think about it. As I sit here in this video and talk, fill the space solely myself, I find in doing this process, there's an underlying misconception, perhaps is the way I would describe it, that people with the gift of gab revel in using it. I think that's where the interesting intersection between my parents happens at me, to be both extroverted and introverted at the same time. I've always been very, very well spoken, very articulate, interesting thoughts to share, not afraid to share them. And yet, I really just like keeping to myself. Oh man, how it feeds me. Oftentimes, people's energy can be so overwhelming. It's not fun being so aware all the time, seeing things that people aren't able to see in themselves, like feeling a need to express it. Pablo said, just because you peep it, that don't mean you got to speak it. And I feel that. But it's levels to this shit. You talk about being called or purpose or all these things, the core human motivations gets fickle fast. And so I'm constantly thinking about what I want to lead me through this existence. It's constantly evolving and ever changing, and yet it is the most consistent thing I've come across in this, dare I say, universe, but my universe. That, but I think it's no coincidence that this is the last video in this series at this time in my life because I'm definitely on the edge of a transition, and I'm extremely interested to see how things unfold from this point on. I think the part of the beauty in doing this is it works as a sort of time capsule for myself. I look forward to being able to look back on this and reminisce and see how things have changed and know that it was in these times, all the investment, all the work, and all the things, all the seeds, all the planting, everything I did and held fast onto and believed in. I just can't wait to look back on it and know that not only was it worth it, but I'm like, there was something to it. I was on to something. And I think it will be, that's what in my heart of hearts, where if I can dare to dream, that is my dream, that I will have that moment from that position and place and be able to look back and have documented in a concrete, intangible way for future generations. I think it's so hard to convince people when you're in it. We're so conditioned into waiting to see. Like we don't believe until we see. And the irony of life is that you have to believe in order to see. But it's hard to believe that. It's tough. It's just not wired that way. And so I get it. I feel it. I do. But that is my dream. If I had to simplify it and break it down, I want to be able to look back and say, this is why. All that shit I used to do, all that shit I sacrificed, all that shit I suffered through, it was for this moment because I knew I would get here. And there was so much I had to learn then to get to that now that is yet to come into existence. But man, oh man, is there something to that belief. I'm gonna write this book. I'm gonna rewrite this book. The book is written, but it's not done. And so I am going to I'm gonna get back to that. I look forward to the when this season fully transitions to having the time to get back to that because I've learned so much in terms of what I want that to be and how I want it to look. I may be able to get closer to done in a way that I simply couldn't. I think that first stage requires an ability to wait. The hardest thing for me, for a lot of us probably, is the waiting. So many of us inherently have work ethic. We want to work hard. We want to make things work. But that makes waiting hard. Makes alignment hard because we're subjected to time. Sometimes you gotta wait for the stars to align, as they say. And in that waiting, you gotta train yourself how not to lose that belief, the belief that got you to the point where you needed to wait anyway, so that we can start changing and crafting the posture and energy in which we wait. It's been my biggest lesson, or the lesson I'm most grateful I learned in this season. Is the value, not just the waiting, but how I wait. The privilege to choose how I wait. Something to be said for that. Something deep. I thought about making this a full episode because I could really talk about a lot. I almost went and like, on some streamer shit, went back and watched each episode and critiqued it in the ways that I was doing those therapeutic videos. But I don't feel that's not what I'm feeling. I always trust my gut. I think less is more here. I think I really already I've already gotten quite deep, low key. But I think if I was going to do that, it would just be another season to itself, be like, 1.5 perhaps, or maybe season two would be a reflection of season one. And then, that would give me a break for the year. And season three, we see if people trying to see something shake, man. You know, go with the flow, check the vibes, do a vibe check. But having gotten over this hump and dare I say successfully executed my goal, regardless of the, you know, objective success, I'm proud to say, and glad to say that I set the goal to do this podcast, and for better or for worse, high quality for low quality, I was able to do it. I was able to get it done. And that in itself is important to me. And I'm grateful for having achieved a level of awareness that allows for me to be grateful in that way. I think it's something I was missing when I was younger, even though it was always there, was left unrefined, raw. It could have really serviced me at that time. But again, everything happens in its time. And so I'm just grateful now to have reached this place at this age. And I can't wait for the games to begin. What an ominous line to end on, but pretty sure we got deep. If not we, definitely me. Catch y'all on the flip. Stay up.